So let's get right to our big story tonight. And if you ever wanted a reason for saving, scraps of paper, photographs, and things like this, this is the reason you should. Because there is a woman here in Southern California who has been saving this stuff for nearly 4 decades now. And what she discovered, she has an amazing treasure. We call it a rock and roll treasure. Take a look. The British invasion, the Beatles, and the Rolling Stones, their music, their fashion, and their swagger. Rock and roll's first supergroups took America by storm in the 1960s, changing the cultural landscape of American youth.
I was just in awe of all the beautiful people, and they were just our friends. It was amazing.
Now, almost 50 years later, like a mirage emerging from a desert oasis, this Southern California woman has answers to questions that rock fans have been asking for decades.
And then it's just page after page.
The answers lie within photo albums full of rare Polaroids, lyrics, letters, and recordings, items the public has never seen until now.
I met Jessie in '66 in L.A.
64-year-old Patty Daly was the ultimate rock and roll insider. The love of her life, Jessie Ed Davis, was one of the greatest unsung guitar heroes in rock and roll.
He was just the most subtle, tasty guitar player. When rock and roll was really happening, everyone loved his playing and sought after him to play on their records.
Legends like all the Beatles, members of the Rolling Stones, Rod Stewart, the Faces, and more all enlisted Davis's skill on his trademark Fender Telecaster.
I hear him still on the radio. I'll listen to the old stations, and it's wonderful. It makes my heart smile.
For more than a decade, she toured the world with Jessie and her young son Billy, not only bearing witness, but also documenting what is now a legendary time in pop culture.
It's amazing. We're looking at these photos, but these aren't prints that were taken. These are the original photos that you have kept for all these years.
A mother, armed with a Polaroid camera, Patty took candid one-of-a-kind pictures of icons in rock.
I just kept my Polaroid camera on me all the time. It was in my person.
From a young Mick Jagger and Charlie Watts.
Mick's just a baby in that one.
Yeah, he's young.
To a carefree Ronnie Woods before he joined the Stones. To a series of Beatle photos post the breakup, many taken during John Lennon's Lost Weekend. In 1973, Lennon separated from his wife Yoko and began an 18-month relationship with his secretary May Pang, a relationship Yoko reportedly initiated, and the couple spent quite a bit of time here at this Santa Monica beach house. Lennon later referred to this time as his Lost Weekend.
This picture is John in the morning at the Santa Monica Beach House having his cup of tea. That's my son played backgammon with Ringo, always out by the pool.
But perhaps the rarest set of photos she owns are 2 Polaroids of Paul McCartney playing a piano inside Lennon's beach house in 1974. It was their first meeting since the Beatle breakup in 1970.
It's incredible. It's incredible. I mean, a lot of these things are things you've only read about.
We showed the items to Chris Carter, host of Breakfast with the Beatles, the longest-running Beatle radio program in the United States.
Just amazing, I saw a picture of, Mickey Dolenz like climbing up a hill, and, a picture of Keith Moon on the shag carpet. These are rock icons, and these are pictures no one's ever seen.
Amazingly, Patty's treasure includes more than just photos. Handwritten cards from George Harrison and John Lennon, personal notes from historic recording sessions, all signed by the musicians who were there, and the potential motherlode, John Lennon's lyrics from his Walls and Bridges recording sessions, including what is believed to be his handwritten lyrics to his only #1 song.
Whatever gets you through the night, it's all right.
That's John's writing, and it's whatever gets you through the night.
So when he was recording the song, he'd be reading off this?
Yes, he'd put it in the podium and sing.
And then when they were done with the recording session,
I just walked by.
I love this. She just comes up the podium and... Okay.
I don't think
and he didn't care.
As for Patty, she's not sure what she'll do with her treasure. She admits, though, that it was an incredible time in her life, and now she wants to share it with the world.
What a wonderful life you've had. Do you
Yes.
realize that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, very, very lucky. Very, very.
I feel very privileged to have met the people I've met and heard the music I've heard.
She is such a sweet woman, and Patty and her boyfriend Jesse, they broke up in the kind of late 70s. He continued to play with a lot of great rock and roll bands until his death in 1988. Last night, we showed you Patty Daly's treasures of never-before-seen Beatle memorabilia. Patty and her Polaroid camera spent considerable time with John, Paul, George, and Ringo gathering photos and mementos of the Fab Four post the breakup and other rock and roll legends from the 60s and the 70s. Well, tonight we have more, including John Lennon's infamous Lost Weekend. The images are incredible. Candid, personal photographs of rock royalty. John Lennon, George Harrison, Ringo Starr, and Paul McCartney. The Beatles, post-breakup in the early 1970s. Okay, now here's a nice color photo. Tell me about... Patty Daly's personal photo albums are documented proof of what Beatle fans have only read about in books and magazines. The biggest rock stars in the world were still working and playing, and even at times they were living with each other here in Southern California.
Very good friends. All of them kept in touch.
Daly's boyfriend at the time was this man, Jesse Ed Davis, the go-to guitarist for all the Beatles on their solo albums. In 1974, Patty and Jesse spent most of their days with John Lennon during his now infamous Lost Weekend. And her Polaroid camera was always in her purse, ready to capture the rock icons who drifted in and out of Lennon's inner circle.
This one is the original Pussycats.
Lennon was singer-songwriter Harry Nilsson, taken during the recording of his Pussycats album. Also captured during those now legendary alcohol-fueled recording sessions, several shots of Ringo Starr, plus several candid shots of John Lennon's then-girlfriend, May Pang, his constant companion during his separation from his wife, Yoko. Tell me about, what do you remember about the so-called, what they coined it as, the Lost Weekend?
I think John had left and he just wanted to get away and do something different. I know he missed Yoko. I know they kept in contact, but I think he was just letting it out, you know, being with the boys.
And the gathering place for the boys was often Lennon's rented beach house in Santa Monica.
The house was wonderful. I remember sitting by the pool a lot, and my son Bill playing backgammon and
with
Ringo.
Right. Also captured shooting pool Eric Clapton with his then-girlfriend Patty Harrison, who by that time had left George Harrison. Daly also photographed a young Mickey Dolenz goofing around on the beach with his camera. And the only picture of legendary The Who drummer Keith Moon lying on the living room floor.
Keith was one of a kind. I always called him Moon the Loon.
And two photos of Paul McCartney in Santa Monica, playing Lennon's baby grand piano.
I had gone into the house to use the bathroom, and when I walked through, he was playing, and it was just so full and so beautiful. I think at the beach house, that was the first time Paul and John had seen each other since, since way back.
In regards to the Lost Weekend, did you have a favorite item?
My favorite picture is the one of John and George at the Troubadour, just because it just shows who they are. John with his rock and roll drunk, his rock and roll button, and George just being his beautiful spiritual self. Just that's his mate, you know, and just being patient and loving him.
Our producer, Tara Wallace, did an incredible job, hours and hours, getting all that material, putting it together, making sense of it all, because it's just in boxes and boxes of material. So Tara did a wonderful job. And tomorrow night, another super group, the Rolling Stones, and Patty Daly's rock and roll collection gets even more incredible. That's tomorrow night here at 11 o'clock.
Okay, that's really hard to believe that it gets better. But why now, after keeping it in boxes under the bed for decades? Why now? Why is she coming forward?
Well, she has a health concern, and that's why now.
So she's looking...
But I can't say, there's...
Okay. The most impressive thing you saw?
The most impressive thing, well, there's two things. The letter to Capitol Records, where John Lennon just chews them out over the first Beatle compilation album. They had designed a cover that he simply hated, and it's a wonderful letter. And then, well, I would say that's probably the most important.
impressive.
Yeah, to me.
All right, more to come tomorrow. Can't wait.
Okay.
All right, Chuck.
For the past couple of nights here, we've been sharing with you a treasure of never-before-seen Beatle memorabilia. And tonight we're going to travel back in time to rock with the legendary Rolling Stones when they were very young. The Rolling Stones, the original bad boys of rock, in dozens of one-of-a-kind pictures, many taken with a Polaroid camera. The never-before-seen photos are part of a rock and roll treasure that Patty Daly has stored away for nearly 40 years. Rock and roll under the big top. The Rolling Stones Rock and Roll Circus. It was December 1968, and the Stones gathered the finest musicians in the world to play in London, including Patty's then boyfriend, Jesse Ed Davis.
He was the guitar player's guitarist, and he wasn't that well known to public, but every musician knew of him and used him.
The couple struck up a friendship with the Stones, and it was a friendship that lasted more than a decade. And Patty, with her camera always at her side, captured incredible, candid moments of the icons in rock.
Mick's just a baby in that one.
Yeah, he's young.
That was in New York City, and he and Charlie came up to our hotel room.
They just would come up and visit?
Yep. They were just sitting on the bed, and I think Mick stayed at our place about 3 days. This one is Klaus Vormann, Cynthia Webb, Charlie Watts, and Jesse Davis, and Charlie's being bad.
And this rare photo, Patty believes it's from 1964. Keith Richards backstage in San Bernardino, the first Stones concert in the U.S.
That's an old one. Look how young Keith looks, my goodness.
Patty says she was closest with Ronnie Wood. More than a dozen photos that only an insider would get.
Ronnie Wood is very special. I love you, Ronnie Wood.
Her favorite? A series of 3 pictures she took of Wood inside her hotel room, hamming it up for the camera.
This was Rod Stewart and the Faces Band. This was Ronnie Wood, Rod Stewart, and Jesse Ed Davis warming up before the gig.
And there is picture after picture of Wood on his last tour with the Faces in 1975, just months before he parted ways with Rod Stewart and officially joined the Stones. It was an incredible time in pop culture, documented in this rare collection of photos that will continue to amaze rock and roll fans for years to come.
It was just my life at that time. I was very, very lucky to be around those people because they were amazing people, and the music was magic. The music was so good.
So you may be asking, what's going to happen to this rock and roll treasure? Well, that is totally up to Patty, but we'll let you know what does happen. We've posted all of our stories on our website at nbcla.com. Just search Rock and Roll Treasure.
They had to be, what, in their 20s at the time?
Yeah, they're in their 20s, right.
And you've only scratched the surface. How many books or boxes does she have?
Many, many. No, there are a few. I can't tell you exactly how many, but I know that we probably went through half a dozen, at least.
And over what period of time was she out?
They were all in the 70s, from about the mid-70s to about the late 70s. That's what it covered there.
And more to come.
Yep.
All right. Interesting.
It is interesting. A tell-all book, you would assume, maybe around the
Who knows
corner,
what she's going to do?
Yeah,
Well, didn't you
there
say
go.
her son was documenting it too?
Yeah, well, actually, when we were filming, that's kind of interesting. He was filming us filming that. I don't know what he plans to do with that. It couldn't have been that interesting, but he was.
Well, I think it is interesting. And everybody else does, too. Good pictures and good weather out there today.